Hi, everyone. A good morning, good afternoon, or even good evening to you. My name is Curtis Brooks. To wherever you may be, thank you for joining, and hopefully, you will watch the replay on this broadcast here. We are talking about the four basic principles of online marketing and plus a bonus. Once more, my name is Curtis Brooks. I am with Curtis Brooks Media Productions. I have been in the online space for about 7 years, actually, and it's just been recent where I've decided to take my knowledge and my expertise and make a business. So, hence, moving forward, we've come up with Curtis Brooks Media Productions. We are online marketers, we are online content creators, and essentially we are here to help your organization stand out online because there are so many businesses in the online space, and some are doing things the right way and some are doing things the not so right way. So we're here to help clarify some things and clear the air and hopefully get you off to a great start, to a grand start, and working to build your business in the online space because it is in fact essential to building your business in the online space as well as having that physical location if that's your desire. I will place myself on screen here and so you can have an idea of who I am. Once more, my name is Curtis Brooks. I am with Curtis Brooks Media Productions, here to help clear the air in regards to the four principles of online and offline marketing and plus the bonus. So let's get started. One of the first things that many of us as people, human beings, we all have a story. We all have a story. And all too often, our story is neglected. And if you have a service, if you have a product, or however you may be serving your customer, your client, we all have a story. And essentially, that story is what sells. Take, for instance, McDonald's. Let's look at our story. Take, for instance, McDonald's. Okay. McDonald's doesn't necessarily make the best burgers, and most of us can make a better burger than McDonald's. But McDonald's has a story. They have an awesome story. It talks about a guy by the name of Ray Kroc who was just a failure in a lot of ways, some successes, but at some point in his life, he just couldn't get it together. And so finally, this guy was selling shake machines to restaurants, essentially. And obviously, he had some success stories and some failures. But we most of us know the story by the way that it didn't look too good for him. He was essentially a failure, but somehow he came up with an idea of collaborating with a gentleman who owned a restaurant who was known for their burgers. He sold the shake machines and they collaborated. Again, we're not necessarily going to get into the story of how McDonald's is so wonderful or it's not so wonderful, but for the fact is that it was a story that set McDonald's on the map. And it's not going to be any different from you or I. It's going to be the story. Your story, it's going to sell. And you must tell your story in a succinct fashion. So every story has a beginning, right? Every story has a middle and every story has an end. And the ending is going to be the conclusion of how the antagonist came out victorious. And for every story, there is going to be a protagonist. So I think the challenge a lot of times is that when we are telling our stories, we don't want to tell a story, and at least we don't know how to tell a story. And because we don't know how to tell a story, we deem our story sometimes as invalid. And in fact, once more, McDonald's doesn't have the best burgers. I don't make the best burgers. And that's pretty much subjective, right? But because it is subjective, if you place a story with it, a story that's compelling, a story that's believable. Ray Kroc's story was definitely believable. And most people know the story. Matter of fact, there was a movie about McDonald's a couple years ago. Not sure how well it fared in the movie theaters, but nevertheless, there was a story about McDonald's, about Ray Kroc and his story and how eventually McDonald's came about. Again, keyword is story. And the same story that sold billions of hamburgers for McDonald's and even shake machines franchises is the same story that's going to sell and move your product or your service. So I want to just really impress upon you, don't be afraid to tell your story. And if you need, do some research on how to tell stories. Absolutely, it's very important, folks. Your story is going to sell your product. It doesn't mean that you're going to have the best services or you're going to have the best customer service. You're going to definitely not going to have the best product because there's so many of us out there vying for the customer's business. And so eventually you have to have a story that's compelling. We're going to get into the bonus of this somewhere at some point after we finish the 4 points, the 4 principles here, but we will get into the bonus here. But again, you must have a story. And if you don't know how to tell your story, do some research. Do some research. One of the biggest problems that most entrepreneurs are having is that we are not doing the research. That's going to bring me into my second point here. That second point is going to be our competition. Or excuse me, that second point is going to be our audience. You must know your audience. Again, this is going to take research, all right? Much like each story has a beginning, each story has a middle, and every story has a conclusion, right? You got to do your research, guys. And that's the biggest challenge for most entrepreneurs is that we're hesitant or reluctant to do the story. We have this great idea for a service or product that we want to use to solve problems for our customer. But most cases, because we don't do the research, we don't know who our customer is. And part of knowing who our audience or our customer is, who your clients are, is doing your research. So you must do the research. And doing the research, what I found out, what works best for me is that I have created a customer avatar. And there are tons of links out there. So again, do the research. Hop on Google and enter customer avatar, customer avatar strategy worksheet or something of that sort. And you'll be sure to find all kinds of options out there in regard to a document that you can, or a PDF that you can download, and you essentially fill in the blanks in regards to who your audience is or your target customer is in regards to building a product or service around that target audience. And that's key, guys. You have to remember is that the product is not necessary just for us. We're not going to be, we can't get high off our own product, if you will. We can't be our best customer. Our customers are out there, somewhere out there on the internet and across the oceans, across the seas, if you will. Those are our customers. So we have to make sure that we are speaking to our audience. And part of speaking to our audience is creating that customer avatar. Again, you can do the research on Google and just type in customer avatar worksheet or strategy worksheet or something of that sort along those lines there. It's going to give you more information about, again, building your customer avatar. What is your customer reading? And a little bit ago, I did a video, and I'll place that video link within the posting of this video here. But nevertheless, I did a video again, similar to some of the same things I'm doing right now in regards to knowing who your target audience is. All right. So that's going to be absolutely essential, is to know who your target audience is. Do the research. If anything, you will need to download, again, hop on Google, enter customer avatar worksheet or document, download the PDF. There are tons of them out there, guys. So there'll be no excuse for not knowing who your customer is. Answering those tough questions. Again, knowing who your customer is, that's not just enough. Well, I know who my customer is, or I know the demographics. You've got to get detail within the demographics. And demographics are essentially, again, that's kind of broad, but you've got to know what the age group is. 18 to 25 or 18 to 35, whatever the case may be. But middle age, older adults, you've got to know who inspires them. What books are your audience reading? And this is where you will get into the keywords that you're going to use to find your audience as you're building that avatar. You're going to pick out the keywords and, again, who inspires your audiences, your target audience that you are trying to connect with, who inspires them. That's where you're going to find your target audience. What books are they reading? Okay, guys, that's going to be key. So our third point will be competition. What is your competition? All right, you must know your competition. Again, doing the research, guys, is going to be absolutely instrumental in knowing who your competition is, winning, getting ahead of the curve, if you will, and essentially being a pioneer if that's what your desire is. But you must know your competition. Knowing your competition calls for doing the research. Once more, the biggest challenge for many entrepreneurs is that we don't want to do the research. You can't, well, you can create a product or service that you believe is the best, but if you are not set on really establishing yourself, you're going to fail. And how you and I will establish ourselves is, again, getting to know, one, our own story, not being afraid to tell that story in a way that it's compelling, that keeps it interesting, if you will, that keeps your potential customer or client intrigued and they want to know more. And because you have survived all of this here, it makes you a great coach. Because you have went through these many different challenges in life, it makes your service number one. Your story is what's going to sell, right? That's just a quick recap here. This is exciting, guys, because when you know that they are really set principles for marketing, it really takes the complication out of all of this here. It takes the sting out of this and really just doesn't make it so difficult anymore. Again, one, knowing your story, telling your story in a compelling and a succinct fashion, if you will. Your story can be linear. Linear means that it goes from one situation to the next situation. And nonlinear, you can tell a nonlinear story, meaning there are several different components to it. But nevertheless, you want to make sure that you are connecting the dots and that you are making sure that your customer, your client, as you're telling a story about your business or your service, how that product came about, how you came about with your logo, you want to make sure that as you are telling that story in a non-linear fashion, that eventually you have connected the dots. So you're not necessarily leaving your listener or your viewers with, okay, well, what happened? I don't get it. So again, make sure you're telling that story in a succinct fashion and that it's logical, that it just makes sense and that people can follow along with you. So whether it's whether it's linear or non-linear, it takes on many different parts toward many different players within the story. You want to make sure that you are connecting the dots and that at the end of that story, your listeners, your viewers are able to follow along. So keep that in mind. You want to make sure that your audience, you have a targeted audience for your story. Everyone's not going to like your story. Let's just face it. That's just how life is. Everyone is not going to like your story. Everyone's not going to think your story is the perfect story. You're not going to look like a hero in your story to everyone. And that's just how it is. And that's something that we just, fortunately or unfortunately, we have to deal with. And that means that, hey, you've got to learn how to tell your story to your audience. So as you are learning how to tell your story, know where your audience, know who your audience is. Because again, everyone doesn't want to listen to your story. So make sure you're connecting your story with the right audience. So that's why it's important to know your audience and know where your audience can be found so they can hear your story. Again, so research, 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 guys. That's what this is about, right? And we talked about our competition. That's where we're at right now. Competition, knowing your competition. Knowing your competition means that you will more than likely visit your website. See what they're talking about, whether it's your service, your product. Know what your competition is selling. Your competition very well may be behind you. They very well may be in front of you. Either way, know who's behind you, know who's in front of you, and know who is on your left flank and also on your right flank. Okay, so it is absolutely important, guys, to know your competition, know what they're doing, know their colors, know their brand. And as marketing goes, you want to model some things, not everything, but you want to model some things that you see that's working for your competition, and that is okay. Recognize and know that there's absolutely nothing new, guys. Everything in life thus far mirrors one thing to the next thing, to the next thing, and to the next thing. So recognize that it is okay to mirror something, to model something that you've seen in its contents or in its context, but not necessarily completely in its content. So make sure that you are modeling this idea or the copyright that you might see in a manner that you are not completely modeling it as it's read on their particular website or landing page, but model it in the sense that you are able to just kind of tweak it some. And again, you're delivering the same kind of bang or powerful message, but make sure you're just not copying it word for word. Okay. Again, in the marketing, we don't necessarily use copying, but we use the word model. So make sure you're modeling it in a way that you are delivering a great message, but you're not modeling it or copying it word for word. So keep that in mind as you are learning about your competition. Know who your competition is, guys. It takes research. It takes research. Again, listen to what people are saying. Listen to what the copy is, or as you're reading a copy, you're gathering a visual. And copy, as you are doing your copywriting should essentially be telling a story. Sometimes that story is concise, and sometimes that story is more full of the things that make up a story, that kind of really the details of a story. So you're going to have a more concise story, or you'll have a story that just, again, that's more full in detail. So know your competition, guys. Do the research. Look at their website. Look at their layout on their website. Essentially, see how they have things put together on their website, and you're going to be golden after that. Again, know your competition. All right. And we're going to go to marketing. That is one of the biggest things, guys. That is one of the biggest things you must be aware of. You must understand the marketing piece. Again, as I said earlier, Ray Kroc and McDonald's Foundation or organization didn't necessarily make the best burger. You or I can make a burger better than McDonald's. Most people can, but it was marketing. Marketing for most businesses, guys, is going to be your biggest budget, if you will. You're going to have to make room for marketing, guys. That's one of the biggest challenges, another challenge that a lot of entrepreneurs are not understanding, because though you may have a great product, a great service, and you may have the great wording on your website, a great copy, you might even have a wonderful website. But if you're not marketing in the appropriate fashion, or not so much the appropriate fashion, but if you're not marketing your service or product in a fashion where it's meeting the requirements of your customer, where your customer's at. If you're not using online ads, yes, there's traditional marketing, and that's not going anywhere, but it is there. It's just there essentially. We know by numbers, guys, do your research. Most people have their cell phones on them at all times. Do your research, guys. Marketing. Marketing says, and doing my research, that more than 80% of people are using their cell phones. They're purchasing from their mobile devices. So their cell phone, their tablet, some kind of mobile device they're making their purchases from. They're watching your videos. They are looking at your ads online within their timeline on Facebook or any other social media platform. So know your marketing strategy. You must have a marketing strategy. Marketing is absolutely going to be essential to getting your message out there, retaining those customers, converting those viewers to customers. Marketing is absolutely going to be essential. Okay, video or just apps or just essentially creating a post, Facebook post or some kind of LinkedIn post, whatever, or Twitter post. Know that you will have to spend money on marketing. And this is not necessarily well, you might have to, it is a must. It is something that you will have to do. Okay. It may go against our understanding sometimes, but it is something that you have to do. You will have to market your product by spending money on marketing, creating some kind of marketing budget, whether it's $50 or $100 or even more. The point of it is that marketing gets numbers, it gets eyeballs, and essentially this is what this is, guys. This is a numbers game. We have to remember that. So the more eyeballs you have watching your product, your ad, looking at your post, your video, the more opportunity you have eventually to convert someone. So if you have a 2% conversion rate on 1,000 people, that's not a whole lot. But if you have 10,000 people watching now, you've got a 2% conversion rate on 10,000. Now, guess what? You've got more people converting to customers. So it's not necessarily complicated, but it does make sense. It's logical. And I really want for you to really think of this in a logical fashion because it is a numbers game, whether you have a physical location. And that was the reason really why I named this or gave the title to this broadcast, the 4 principles of online and offline marketing. So whether you have a physical brick and mortar building for a business or where you offer your services or you're in the online space, these 4 principles will work in every area. So whether it's online or offline, the 4 principles will work. Keep that in mind as you are building your customer base and converting those viewers and those listeners and those conversations, that engagement. As you are converting them into customers, know that these 4 principles will work, whether it's offline or online. They will work in either one of these spaces here. Right. So we've been talking about marketing, how it's important that when you are doing video, when you are just doing a post, again, we're talking about paid ads, if you will. That's how you're going to get your highest conversion rate. Okay. Through paid ads. You may stumble upon a few, you may luck out, but guys, know that on either of these platforms, be it YouTube, Facebook, or even LinkedIn, or even Twitter, guys, they are geniuses on how they have set this up here. And essentially, by creating a post, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn, and just leaving it there, though you may have a wonderful service that you offer, though you may have great products, by creating an ad and just leaving it there or just posting it there just for the sake of just, hey, look at what we're doing here, guys, you are not really making use of the platform in a way that it is intended. Because essentially, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, or Twitter, you have your customers, millions of customers right there. And again, it is a numbers game, guys. Keep that in mind. It is a numbers game. So as you are making those video posts or just a post in general, go beyond just, if you're using Facebook, go beyond just boosting it. Again, use your avatar. That's what the avatar is about, because you're looking for that ideal customer. The ideal customer, you've done the research, you know what the age is, Uh, Essentially, you know the demographics. Again, that's pretty broad there, if you will, but you know their age, you know where they're located, you know what cities you want to hit, you know what time of the day you want to do the ad, if that's something that you are interested in, and you know, um, again, just the details of your customer. You know who inspires your customer. You know the language they're speaking, not so much their native language, but what are they reading? What are they reading? What inspires them? Where do they shop at? Do they shop at high end department stores? Saks Fifth, Nordstrom's, Tiffany's? Where do they shop at? Even what do they wear? So these are things that are going to be absolutely important. And again, narrowing down on where exactly do I find my customer. Again, converting those conversations, converting those viewers, those listeners, uh, into customers. Those individuals who will visit your website, converting them to customers. So again, knowing how important all of these things are, but for the marketing piece, you must be prepared to spend some of your cash, some hard earned cash on marketing. Again, getting more eyeballs, guys. Again, this is a numbers game. It's not complicated, but when you understand it, it absolutely does make sense, guys. All right. So think about that. Keep that at the forefront of your mind in regards to how do I convert these viewers, these listeners, these conversations. You have to do the math and understand that it is a numbers game, and it really is just understanding that it is a numbers game. The more eyeballs on your advertisement, watching your posts, the more opportunity there is for you and I to convert those viewers into customers and eventually returning customers as well. So that is the nuts and bolts of it. You will have to pay for marketing, guys. So just, that's just how it goes. Okay. Uh, and finally, well, before we go into the final piece of it, we're going to talk about the analytics of it all too. So whether you're doing a video post for the marketing end of it, our fourth principle, you want to look at the analytics, and that's going to be hugely important as well. So whether it's a video or it's just a post for a product or a service that you are offering, you want to look at the analytics. What are people responding to? Facebook gives you a ton of analytics. So if you are advertising on Facebook, you will have that information, those numbers available to you. If you are doing a video or posting on YouTube or Google, the analytics are there as well. So look at the analytics, guys. Pay attention to the keywords. So all of these things I've talked about, essentially, they are essentially connecting the dots. So they all factor into really converting a customer, engaging with your customer. So you're telling a story. So even if you're doing a blog, make sure you're using keywords within that blog post, guys. All right. People are speaking in terms, not necessarily in keywords, but people Google or any other browser such as Firefox, Safari, keywords, guys. People are asking for things by keywords. Keywords meaning that they are targeted words that people will ask for. Not just red shoes, but red shoes with a white stripe or something of that sort. So you have to go beyond just a general conversation, but getting to the specifics of what you're looking for. And that's exactly what Google, Firefox, and Safari, that's exactly what they're doing. So each of these platforms, they have it down to a science. It has to go beyond just a general conversation. You have to use keywords in regards to, again, targeting your audience and where you will find your audience. Again, they are using the keywords to say, hey, this is where you can find me. You can find me right here on Elm Street, 222 Elm Street at the Blue House. See, and that's interesting in itself because, see, now I've just gone from just Elm Street. I've actually given Elm Street an address, and I've given Elm Street a blue house. So that's more target rather than just saying Elm Street, or rather than just say, I'm looking for red shoes. You're going to get millions of websites or results on the red shoe. So as you target it down, or at least uh, kind of just break it down further, if you will, you'll find that your search gets, or your results get, less and less. And from those findings, if you will, those results, you'll find your target audience. And so you must narrow it down. So it again, it's not just the red shoes, but it's the red shoes with with the white stripe, and even further detail if you like. And now that's where you would find your target audience, guys. So this is absolutely awesome, guys. So let's again make sure you're looking at the analytics, guys. Analytics is going to tell you if your keywords are working or not. So keep it in mind. And finally, as promised, the bonus. I kind of briefly mentioned this already, and the bonus is stand out. So that's going to be our number 5 here. Number 7 is on my switcher here, but nevertheless, number 5 is going to be stand out. There's a book that I would highly recommend. It's called The Purple Cow by Seth Godin, and it is an absolutely exceptional book, and it really inspired me. So I want to recommend that book. I'm not getting paid for this here. Godin is not paying me for anything, not necessarily sponsoring him either, but I am really just recommending the book to you. And again, I'm not receiving any kind of payment for this, but it is a great book, and we just sometimes have to give praise or the applause to whom it is due. And he wrote an excellent book, and I would again recommend that book. It's called The Purple Cow, and it really talks about just standing out. And essentially, when we have really kind of learned how to tell our story in a way that we can tweak it here and tweak it there, and you can tell your story, or at least variations of that story, to several different audiences at the fly there, we come into the audience part of it. Again, knowing your audience. And once we know our audience here, we come into the competition. And once you come into the competition, you come into the marketing piece of it. And then once you have all those things together, you really want to do something that stands out. You really want to do something that stands out. And the reason why I think that is so important is because, guys, let's face it, there are millions upon millions of people in the online space. Some of the information is great information. Some of the information is not so great information. So in the midst of all of this here, great information and not so great information, we can't allow ourselves to get distracted. And if you are determined to really make a name for yourself, brand your business, you've got to be willing to stand out. You've got to be willing to do something completely different. And I'm not necessarily saying that's going to be so outlandish and not an individual jumping off jumping off a mountain or some kind of tower, high elevation, or some kind of building or something. That's not what I'm talking about. But in a sense of marketing, in fact, that could be marketing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that extreme, guys. But it does have to do something that will really essentially help you to stand out. Use your creative imagination. And if you've been an entrepreneur for any time, you more than likely have a creative imagination. So don't be afraid. Again, this is where it's important to look at our competition. See what they're doing. And maybe you can kind of just enhance on what they're doing. Do something a little bit different. Again, not so much modeling completely in the same fashion, but tweak it a little bit. Do something a little different. It's important to stand out, guys, in this space as we're wrapping it up here. It is absolutely essential to stand out in this space. So the way that you and I can stand out, again, is knowing your story, Being able to tell that story in several different ways from one audience to yet another audience. Because at the end of the day, it's the story that sells. And you may have different versions of that story. But however many versions you may have of that story, it is the story that sells. And that's what we must remember. And here's something to hopefully kind of just really kind of just ingrain this in our mindset. When you think about Facebook, when you think about YouTube, LinkedIn, and so many other platforms, Twitter, and how many news articles or messages that come across video or just postings that come across our timeline, be it Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and how many views that story might have or that video, that posting, how many times it's shared. We, in most cases, don't know the people, but their story compels us. That's what it's about, guys. It's creating a story that compels. It's sometimes doing something completely different or something that challenges, creating a title for your blog post that kind of goes against the grain, if you will. And then you can put a different spin on it and bring it right back to where you want your audience to be. Don't be afraid to stand out. Don't be afraid to challenge different views. It doesn't necessarily mean that you completely disagree with the norm, but put a twist on it and make that post, that blog post, make that video stand out more. Give the video an interesting title. How to, why you should be marketing, the 5 ways to make a video. It could be anything, but just something interesting, something that's going to pique your viewer, your audience's interest, guys. So once again, guys, this has been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to bring myself back on screen here. It has been great. It has been awesome. This has been absolutely wonderful. I hope that you have enjoyed the content that I've been sharing. I did take some time to prepare for this, as you could see, hopefully. It has been wonderful, guys. I've enjoyed talking about the 4 principles of marketing, online and offline marketing, guys. So I've enjoyed this. Hope that you have also enjoyed it. Please share this video here. Please watch the replay. Please make sure that if you have any questions, you can contact us here on our page. That's going to be Curtis Brooks Media Productions. You need any help with standing out or getting your message across, telling your story, let us know. Again, contact us here on our page. That's Curtis Brooks Media Productions. We'll see you then. Thank you.